I know that I'm going to be a whole person again. And when I am, I'll make plans for the two of us. Things that we haven't been able to do.
Joan Collins was the star who saved Dynasty from cancellation. But behind the cameras, John Forsythe made her life hell. His secret contract guaranteed he'd always earn more money than her. He had her face cropped out of promotional photos. By 1982, they stopped speaking entirely. But there was one moment in 1985 that broke her completely. Forsythe did something so cruel during filming that she vowed never to work with him again. At 92, Joan finally reveals what really happened that day. Joan Collins was born on May 23, 1933, in Paddington, London. Her father was a Jewish talent agent from South Africa who later managed big stars like the Beatles, and her mother had once worked as a nightclub hostess and dance teacher. But Joan didn't come into the world during peaceful times. Europe was on edge, and by the time she turned 6, World War II had broken out. London became a target for German bombings, and over 30,000 tons of explosives were dropped on the city during the Blitz. Joan was just a little girl when the sirens would scream, and her family would run to hide in underground tube stations. She was evacuated more than once, sent away from her parents to the countryside. She was only 7 the first time, and it left a mark on her. She learned how to be tough, even as bombs fell and food was so limited that butter was rationed down to 4 ounces a week. She still remembers playing games in the bomb shelters, trying to make fun out of fear. When the war ended in 1945, she came back to a city that was still full of ruins and broken buildings. The apartment was tiny, the heating was rationed, and there was barely enough coal to warm the place. Her father, Joseph, was extremely strict. He didn't give compliments, and once even locked her in a cupboard for hours as punishment. He later admitted he didn't think his children were special. That left Joan desperate for approval, but also quietly rebellious. Her mother, Elsa, cared deeply about beauty and taught Joan how to walk with books balanced on her head for posture when she was just 3. She made homemade face masks from kitchen scraps. By age 5, Joan was already dieting. She weighed only 40 pounds. The family didn't have much money either. Her father earned about $500 a year back then, and fabric for clothes was rationed until 1949. Joan learned to sew her own outfits. In the middle of all this, bombs had left craters nearby, and children played in them. It was a strange mix of strictness and survival, of beauty lessons inside a home surrounded by war ruins. But something in Joan began to rise. She looked in the mirror, pretended to be a star, and imagined a different life. In 1942, when she was just 9, she started training at the Italia Conti Academy in London. It was a well-known school for young performers, but it wasn't easy. Her family struggled to afford the $20 per term during wartime, but they managed. Joan spent long hours learning acting, ballet, and elocution. But school wasn't a safe place. She was bullied badly. Other kids made fun of her posh voice and called her cruel names because of her Jewish background. This was during the Holocaust, and anti-Semitism had risen in Britain too. One day, kids even threw stones at her on the playground. It left bruises on her skin and her heart. She kept going anyway, performing in plays, though sometimes she was so stressed she pretended to be sick and missed school. She lost 10 pounds from the anxiety. At the academy, they didn't go easy on mistakes. Punishments were harsh, like being forced to stand on tiptoes for hours. She also tried to hide her Jewish identity to avoid being treated differently. Still, she pushed through it all. Her toughness grew, and by the time the war ended and she moved on to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art in 1946, she was already a survivor, shaped by hardship. That same year, just before turning 14, Joan made her first professional appearance on stage. It was December 15, 1946, and she was performing in Henrik Ibsen's play A Doll's House at the Arts Theatre in London. She played a small role as a boy, but critics noticed her. The Times praised her natural presence. Behind the scenes, though, she was terrified. She had such severe stage fright that she threw up backstage and had trouble breathing during rehearsals. Doctors even warned that the stress could ruin her career before it started. The fear came from a moment the year before when she froze during a school performance in front of 200 people. But she didn't give up. She performed every night for 50 shows, earning just $5 a week while still going to school. The theater had no heating during that freezing winter, and makeup was rationed, so she had to share lipstick with others. One night, a piece of the set almost fell on her, but she stayed strong, even when her own father dismissed it all as just child's play. That role became the first spark that lit her path. In 1950, when Joan was 17, she was spotted in a school play and signed a contract with the Rank organization. They paid her $100 a week, which was a lot for someone so young. Her movie debut came in 1951 in a film called Lady Godiva Rides Again, where she played an uncredited beauty contestant. But behind the scenes, things turned dark. The producers pressured her to do nude scenes. She refused, standing her ground even though they threatened to fire her. That one choice could have ended her career before it started. But Joan didn't back down. She later said it was the first time she realized how brutal the industry could be for young women. That film also featured Diana Dors and Ruth Ellis, who would later become the last woman executed in the UK. The set was chaotic, filled with thousands of extras, and it almost wrecked her big break. But her refusal to give in showed a strength that would follow her forever. In 1952, Joan starred in The Woman's Angle and was paid the same $100 a week. She was only 19 when rumors exploded in the tabloids about an affair with Sidney Chaplin, the son of Charlie Chaplin. Papers painted her as a homewrecker, even though she denied most of it. In her memoirs, she later admitted the romance was real but became toxic. The scandal almost cost her more roles because studios at the time wanted their actresses to seem perfect. Chaplin already had a reputation with other actresses like Judy Holliday and Claire Bloom. Joan had to fight to rebuild her image, and it taught her how cruel the publicity machine could be. In 1954, Joan moved to Hollywood after signing a contract with 20th Century Fox. Her first American film was Land of the Pharaohs, released in 1955. She played a manipulative princess opposite Jack Hawkins. The director, Howard Hawks, was difficult. He shouted, made her redo scenes over and over, and treated the cast harshly. One day, while filming a scene on the Nile River, a boat flipped and Joan nearly drowned. She had to be rescued from the water. The production lasted more than 50 days under the brutal Egyptian sun, using over 10,000 extras, many from the Egyptian army. The script was so messy that author William Faulkner had to rewrite the dialogue. The film cost over $3 million, but flopped. Hawks ended up leaving Hollywood for a while after that. For Joan, the experience was terrifying, but she came out tougher than ever. By 1957, Joan was 24 and gaining more recognition. But when she demanded equal pay for a role in The Wayward Bus, she was fired. She was earning much less than her co-stars like Jane Mansfield, and she finally said something. Instead of being rewarded, she was replaced. That moment showed her how unfair the system was for women. At the time, actresses were often paid 30 to 50% less than men. The film moved forward without her, and though it only made a modest profit, Joan's bold move nearly got her blacklisted. It was a painful moment, but she remembered it years later when she fought for equal pay again during her Dynasty years in the 1980s. Then, in 1959, when she was 26, Joan began a whirlwind romance with 22-year-old actor Warren Beatty. At first, it was all passion and promise, but things quickly turned dark. She became pregnant, and he insisted on an abortion. Joan went through with it, thinking it would save both their careers, but the pain stayed with her. In her 2023 memoir, Behind the Shoulder Pads, she called it one of her greatest regrets. They were briefly engaged in 1960, but it didn't last. He was already chasing fame and reportedly dated thousands of women. Joan later had 3 children, but that abortion haunted her. It was a sharp reminder of how different the rules were for men and women. Meanwhile, John Forsythe was born on January 29, 1918, in a quiet little town called Penns Grove, New Jersey. His real name was Jacob Lincoln Freund. He was the oldest of 3 kids, and his father worked as a stockbroker. But in 1929, everything fell apart. The stock market crashed, and his father lost everything. The family was suddenly poor, and they had to move from New Jersey to Brooklyn. They went from having enough to barely getting by during the Great Depression, when jobs were disappearing and people were desperate. Life got very hard, but it made young John stronger. He came from a Jewish family with roots in Russia and Poland, and he later said that those early struggles gave him the drive to never give up. In high school, John did well. He was a great athlete and a talented actor. In 1934, he hit 350 as captain of the baseball team and performed in school plays that drew big crowds. He even got into the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. But after just 1 year in 1936, he had to drop out. His family couldn't afford the $300 a year for tuition, so he started working. He took any job he could get. He made $12 a week serving sodas, hauled goods in a truck for 25 cents an hour, and pumped gas during the tough times of 1937. Then, that same year, he got a job announcing games at Ebbets Field for the Brooklyn Dodgers. He made $50 per game, and that's where he began to find his voice, literally. When World War II broke out, John joined the U.S. Army Air Forces in 1943. He stayed until 1945 and helped make over 20 training films for pilots, including one called Winged Victory, that was shown to more than 1 million soldiers. But in 1944, he got very sick while stationed in Texas. He had a high fever and caught pneumonia so badly that doctors said he might not survive. For 2 weeks, he lay in an oxygen tent, and it changed him forever. After that, he became very careful about his health, especially with anything that could hurt his lungs. Even after he got better, the fear of that sickness stayed with him for life. Also in 1943, during the war, he made a big decision. Because his last name sounded German and anti-Semitism was rising, he changed his name from Jacob Lincoln Freund to John Forsythe. It was painful for him, especially after finding out in 1945 that some of his relatives had died in the Holocaust. He later said it felt like giving up a part of who he was, but he believed it was the only way to keep working in Hollywood. That same year, in 1939, he had married an actress named Parker McCormick. They had a son named Dowell in 1941, but their marriage didn't last. In 1943, they divorced after rumors of him being unfaithful during his army training. Court records later said she accused him of emotional cruelty, and the divorce cost him $5,000 in alimony, a lot of money during wartime. They fought over custody until 1944. He rarely spoke about it, but once called it a youthful mistake that taught him to be more humble. Before all this, back in 1936, when he was only 18, John had already started working in entertainment. He became an announcer for the Dodgers and described wild stunts at the stadium, like Jesse Owens racing a horse or golf balls flying through the outfield. But when he asked to be paid $50 instead of $25, he got fired. It almost ended his dream before it really started. That setback pushed him into radio dramas and later Broadway. In 1943, he starred in the Broadway show Winged Victory, which was made to lift spirits during the war. Nearly 300 cast members toured the country. and they performed 445 times for over 800,000 people. But it wasn't easy. The pressure and long hours wore him down, and in 1944, he had a nervous breakdown. Still, he pushed through and earned respect for his dedication, even when the work nearly broke him. After the war, in the late 1940s, John used his voice in radio shows like The Phil Harris-Alice Faye Show. But he got into trouble for wanting more honest writing and was blacklisted from some shows around 1948. That forced him to return to Broadway. In 1953, he starred in a play called The Tea House of the August Moon, which became a huge hit. It ran for over 1,000 performances and even toured Europe. But backstage, things got tense. His co-star tried to upstage him during performances, and their working relationship was strained. Still, John handled it with calm and grace. During this time, in 1943, he had married again, this time to Julie Warren. She supported him through his ups and downs. In 1945, they faced heartbreak when she had a miscarriage. The loss happened while John was still recovering from his breakdown and struggling to find work. It nearly ended their marriage, but they stayed together. They raised their son, Dal, and 2 daughters. Julie stayed by his side until her death in 1994. By 1957, John finally found major TV success. He played Bentley Gregg in Bachelor Father, which ran until 1962. It aired on 3 different networks and made him a household name. He brought his real-life experiences into the role, especially after losing his own father in 1947, shortly after his forced retirement. John said it helped him understand the pain of aging and change. Even with fame, he stayed away from drugs and alcohol, raising his children with care. In 1965, he had a show named after him, The John Forsythe Show, but it only lasted 1 season. It got bad reviews, and the ratings were low. He felt discouraged and even thought about quitting, but he kept going. He turned to narrating documentaries like World of Survival, and later got another big break with Dynasty in 1981. He also acted in many films. In 1955, he starred in Alfred Hitchcock's dark comedy, The Trouble with Harry. The movie mixed romance and death in a strange but charming way. In 1964, he played a senator in Kitten with a Whip, a film full of tension and danger. Then, in 1967, he portrayed a detective in Cold Blood, a movie about a real-life murder case. It was intense and emotional, and some said it brought back memories of his time in the war. There's talk that he turned down a role in The Graduate in 1967, which might have cost him an Oscar nomination. Whether that's true or not, he did face a slump in the early 1970s. He returned to films like Topaz in 1969, but his health began to suffer. By 1979, he had heart surgery, a quadruple bypass, but he kept it secret to protect his career. He didn't want Hollywood to think he was too sick to work. Then came a role that made history. From 1976 to 1981, he voiced the mysterious Charlie in Charlie's Angels. He never appeared on screen, but he was paid $5,000 per episode, more than most actors at the time. He wasn't even the first choice, but when the original actor showed up drunk to the studio, they called John at midnight. He arrived in his pajamas with a coat over them and recorded the voice that would become iconic. When John Forsythe joined Dynasty in 1981, he made one thing very clear. His contract said he would always earn $5,000 more per episode than any of his co-stars. That meant while others like Joan Collins were making $15,000, he was already sitting at $25,000 or more. This demand wasn't hidden. It was in writing from day one, and it caused problems immediately. Joan Collins later said that this kind of pay gap felt like a slap, especially because her character, Alexis, was the reason the show didn't get canceled in its second season. But even after saving the series, she couldn't get a proper raise. The producers just pointed to Forsythe's contract and told her nothing could be done. Years later, when she finally negotiated $120,000 per episode, they still found a way to cut her down. She was only in half the episodes, meaning she actually lost money while he kept his full paycheck. She called him a misogynist. The whole thing made the cast uneasy, and it mirrored the drama they acted out on screen. By 1986, salary leaks showed Forsythe earning double what Joan and Linda Evans were making. It was a painful reminder of how unfair things still were. Forsythe didn't just want more money, he wanted the spotlight too. His contract demanded that his face be front and center on every poster, every ad, every bit of promotion from 1981 onward. To make that happen, they actually cropped Joan Collins out of early marketing. Her face was pushed to the side or even cut out completely. Even though she was the breakout star, she later said it made her furious. She'd walk past billboards in Los Angeles and see her face either shrunk or missing. Forsythe even had rules about publicity photos. He had to appear larger than the rest of the cast. It wasn't just ego. Collins believed it was rooted in something uglier, something every woman in Hollywood had felt, being told to move aside, no matter how good you were. She pushed back. That's when people started calling her difficult, a diva. The irony was painful. She was being punished for asking to be seen. The power struggle didn't stop there. In the very first season, just weeks after Dynasty premiered in January 1981, Forsythe got into a heated fight with the writers. He didn't like how his character was being written. He wanted Blake Carrington to have strong moral values. When the writers tried to add more edge, he threatened to quit. That wasn't just talk. He actually delayed production for weeks until they gave in and rewrote scenes. Crew members stood around waiting while the rewrites happened. It cost the studio a fortune. Years later, in 2006, some cast members remembered how these early power moves gave Forsythe a kind of invisible control. He didn't like change. He didn't like surprises. And that attitude made it hard for new actors like Collins to feel welcome. This kind of behavior came back again in 1989, when similar script arguments led to cast changes and characters like Dominique Devereaux getting pushed aside. Forsythe's grip on the story never really loosened. And that shift, where the show started feeling more over the top and less grounded, was the beginning of the end. One person Forsythe got along with, though, was Linda Evans. He once said he felt much more comfortable around her. In a 1990 interview, he called her warm and easy to work with. But when he talked about Joan Collins, his tone changed. He called her demanding, charismatic, yes, but complicated. He admitted their relationship wasn't easy, and it showed. By 1982, they were barely speaking. On set, he avoided her. She felt the coldness, especially when she fought for equal pay. The tension exploded in 1986 at the People's Choice Awards. Collins accepted an award for the show before Forsythe had a chance to speak. That moment, small as it seemed, pushed him over the edge. He didn't speak to her for an entire season. During that 7th season, from 1986 to 1987, they only communicated through directors. The silence was thick. Rehearsals became awkward. At one point, Forsythe turned his back during a scene. The crew whispered. The tension spilled into their performances, but somehow made the drama even more intense. Years later, in 2005, when they were reunited, Forsythe still didn't make eye contact. Collins said the bitterness never really went away. Then there was that bizarre moment in 1985, during a scene where Blake Carrington was supposed to strangle Alexis. Forsythe refused to do it. He said the scene was too intense for someone his age. He was 67 at the time, but Collins didn't buy it. She said he just didn't want to touch her. The hatred between them had become that real. The studio had to bring in a body double. The scene cost thousands in delays. Forsythe reportedly walked off set after an argument, losing ABC around $50,000 in just one afternoon. Collins later said the atmosphere was poisonous. He'd mutter insults under his breath. When she pushed for a private trailer in 1984, he called her a diva. She pushed back harder. She threatened to quit. And she won, raising her pay to $80,000 an episode. But their relationship only got worse. By 1987, they stopped attending press events together. At the Emmys that year, Forsythe didn't show. Collins joked in her memoir that she'd have preferred a real strangle over his constant glares. It was funny, but sad too. The lines between fiction and reality had completely blurred. The pay drama kept getting worse. By 1985, Forsythe was making over $120,000 an episode. Joan Collins? Just $35,000 when she started. Forsythe reportedly tried to keep it that way. He told producers not to raise the women's salaries too high. After all, he was the patriarch of the show, but Collins wasn't having it. In season 6, she demanded parity, and suddenly her episodes were cut from 22 to 13. In a 1986 interview, she called it sexist nonsense. She was right. Forsythe's contract had a secret clause that guaranteed he always earned 20% more than anyone else. By the end of season 5, he'd made $264 million. Rumors started swirling. Some said he purposely delayed filming to cut Collins's screen time. By 1988, her salary reached $100,000, but not before she threatened to sue ABC for discrimination. Meanwhile, the show's budget ballooned to $1.2 million per episode. Even with all that, producers seemed more afraid of Forsythe's temper than of fairness. Collins said he spread lies about her being greedy. Ratings told a different story. In 1985, the show had 25 million viewers. After the scandal, it dropped by 15%. Behind the scenes, Forsythe kept whispering things about her, that the cast resented her, that she had a big ego. But the truth was, she saved the show. When she joined in late 1981, the ratings shot up. By 1984, Dynasty was the #1 show in America with 28.4 million viewers. Collins said she felt hostility even during reunions. At one in 2006, Forsythe didn't say a word to her. She remembered him telling producers she was difficult back in 1983. That same year, her lines were cut by 30%. She felt the sting again at a panel in 2015. Her co-stars were cold. Forsythe had admitted once, in a 1995 interview, that her rising stardom scared him. In 1987, he refused to show up for a cast photo shoot. He claimed it was a scheduling conflict, but Collins wasn't buying it. She leaked stories of him throwing tantrums, like the time he broke a chair in rage. Even after his death in 2010, she said the old bitterness still lingered. She got cold looks during virtual reunions. Some spin-offs even refused to bring her back, blocked by old cast grudges. But the numbers were always on her side. Her episodes brought in 40% more viewers. She didn't just play Alexis, she was the show. When Forsythe passed away in April 2010 at age 92 from pneumonia complications, Joan Collins gave a respectful tribute. She called him a professional. She mentioned his grace. But in later interviews, she opened up about what really happened. The silent treatment, the pay gap, the behind-the-scenes battles. She said those memories never really faded. Forsythe had left behind a $20 million estate and a reputation shaped by 220 episodes of Dynasty and his work in Charlie's Angels. But behind the scenes, he left something else, a history of ego, silence, and one woman who refused to shrink herself to fit his shadow.